So, rather than just using this opportunity to share with you my thoughts, I'm also taking concrete actions today to advance these priorities. As to my first priority, the implementation of health care reform, I believe it is important to move forward here in California, even if a new Republican majority in the House of Representatives wants to turn the clock back and deny Americans health care reform. That is why, this evening, I'm establishing a new senior leadership position, that of Deputy Commissioner for Health Care Policy and Reform within the Department of Insurance, to assist me in implementing federal health care reform. With this action, I am elevating the importance of health care policy reform efforts within the Department of Insurance. I will also continue my efforts to give the Insurance Commissioner and the Department of Managed Health Care the legal authority to reject excessive health insurance and managed care premium increases. Now, most Californians are surprised when I tell them that the Insurance Commissioner currently has no authority to reject health insurance premium increases. I'll continue to fight to extend to health insurance the successful regulatory authority that exists for auto, property, and casualty insurance under Proposition 103. Proposition 103, enacted by the voters in 1988, gives the Insurance Commissioner the authority to regulate auto, property, and casualty insurance rates. Proposition 103 has saved consumers billions of dollars in premium costs, and we should adopt the same approach for health insurance and managed care premiums. This is one of the critical missing pieces of national health care reform, in addition to the absence of a public option. Another immediate action I will take today is to make sure that I have the legal authority to enforce federal health care reform law. This is even more important, as I alluded a moment ago, with regard to the new leadership of the House of Representatives threatening to defund health care reform implementation and enforcement. Effective January 1st, one of the most critical pieces of health care reform under the federal health care reform legislation went into effect. That piece is a requirement that health insurers in the individual health insurance market devote 80% of the health care premium to health care, the so-called 80% medical loss ratio. This makes sure that 80 cents in every premium dollar goes to health care, not insurer profits, marketing, and overhead. To make sure that I have the authority to enforce the new federal 80% medical loss ratio, at the end of my remarks this evening, I'll sign a notice of emergency regulation. This emergency regulation will give me the legal authority to enforce in California the new federal 80% medical loss ratio for the individual health insurance market. Even if Congress prevents the Federal Department of Health and Human Services from enforcing federal health care reform, we will enforce it here in California. I'm also today directing the Department of Insurance to initiate the rulemaking process for permanent regulation on this matter. And I will work closely with my colleagues in the state legislature to obtain the legal authority to enforce the 85% medical loss ratio for the group health insurance market established by the federal health care reform legislation. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, consumer protection is another priority for me, and will be a main thrust of my administration throughout my term. The insurance industry in California is massive. Actually, it's beyond massive. It has annual revenues of $125 billion. And when an individual consumer is in a dispute, they just don't have the resources to match the insurer. There are a variety of areas in which we'll be working to make sure that we level the playing field for consumers. But one group of consumers that I'm deeply concerned about protecting are our seniors. And I'm especially troubled by instances where seniors are scammed out of nest eggs they've taken a lifetime to save. Seniors like Art Tenner of Stockton. Art Tenner was 80 years old and had terminal disease. Art's wife was in a nursing home and afflicted with advanced Parkinson's disease. Art was sold 3 separate long-term annuities that spanned the next 16 years, and he was 80 years old with a terminal illness. And those annuities had huge surrender penalties, as high as 17.5% of the value of the annuity. The life of those annuities exceeded any reasonable expectation of Art's life, given his terminal illness and age. Art was almost guaranteed to trigger those penalties when he needed access to cash to cover the expenses of caring for his wife. Art Tedder never should have been sold a long-term annuity. He was taken advantage of. And that's why this evening I'm directing the Department of Insurance to prepare and file by no later than January 30th annuity suitability regulations to protect Californians when efforts are made to sell them annuities. The action I'm taking this evening will result in regulations that protect consumers from being sold annuities that are not suitable for them. Our regulations will help to protect seniors like Art Tenner from being ripped off. Another action I'm taking this evening will help those who have lost loved ones and are beneficiaries of life insurance policies, including the families of fallen military personnel. Last year, we learned that some life insurance companies were placing the money owed to beneficiaries of fallen military personnel into so-called retained asset accounts, often without the knowledge or consent of the beneficiary owed the money. In these cases, the money was then invested by the life insurance companies who made interest on it, and then passed, at best part, in some cases none of that interest, back to the life insurance beneficiaries. I told veterans that if I was elected, I would provide better protections for military families and other families who've lost loved ones. And that's why tonight I'm directing the Department of Insurance to develop regulations and initiate the rulemaking process to protect life insurance beneficiaries from the abusive use of retained asset accounts. Consumer protection also means consumer education, and in particular, consumer education in underserved communities across California. Many of these communities I've had occasion to visit. To further advance my consumer protection priority today, I'm reestablishing the Community Programs branch of the Department of Insurance, a branch established by Commissioner Garamendi. The objective of this branch will be to educate consumers, particularly in underserved communities, to administer the low-cost auto insurance program, which provides an alternative for good drivers who can't otherwise afford insurance in the market, and to administer the COIN program that encourages insurers to invest their dollars directly into underserved communities. Now, my third priority is to make sure that we have competitive and functioning insurance markets in California where new products like green property insurance can be brought to market to give consumers and businesses more choice. Consumers and businesses need choices, and keeping a viable, robust, and competitive market is important. I'll work to keep the market healthy in a way that is fair to consumers. We face certain challenges in several of these markets, including the workers' compensation market and long-term care markets, that I know will require considerable attention. It's also critical that we continue to monitor the financial solvency of insurers and intervene where solvency is an issue. And it is essential that we root out fraud, which is a burden on the market, on insurers, and consumers alike. Fraud by policyholders, fraud by scam artists, fraud by vendors, and fraud by insurers and agents who promise one thing and deliver another, or don't deliver it at all. We will make this a priority of the Department of Insurance. Now, in closing, I'm determined to define my tenure as Insurance Commissioner by a single word: action. As a regulator should be, I will be fair and deliberate, but I will also be vigorous in my protection of California's consumers. This will be a proactive Department of Insurance. I invite input from consumers and the insurance industry, including insurance companies and insurance agents and brokers. We will seek together to improve what needs improving, enhance what needs enhancing, and change what needs changing in the world of insurance. And so now, in my first official action as Insurance Commissioner, on this, my first evening in office, I'll sign a Notice of Emergency Regulation to enable me to enforce a key component of national health care reform. And in so doing, not only make sure we enforce that here in California, we send a clear message across this nation and to Congress that here in California, we're going to support the reform, we're going to build on the reform, and we're going to make sure that all Californians have affordable health insurance. Let me tell you, that felt good because as a legislator, you can't do that. Thank you very, very much for joining me this evening. It's a great, great honor and privilege to have so many friends and supporters, so many elected officials and dignitaries, both from the federal government, our new state leadership team, members of the Assembly and Senate, local leaders, all of whom are going to work with one purpose, to improve California. I'm tremendously excited about the prospect of working with each and every one of you. And thank you so very, very much for giving me the opportunity to continue to serve Californians. Thanks a lot.
All the best to you. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Hit the ground, just make it the best consumer protection agency. You'll never go wrong.